Welcome back to LearnWake. This is Brandon Judd, and I am responding today to a user's video analysis request through this screencast here. And this video has been uploaded by user ctmate, and the trick attempt is a Bel Air at the wake park. Thanks for uploading a description with your video. This helps us understand what you're thinking. And in your description, you actually nailed your issue pretty well here. You said you're trying to do a cable Bel Air. You've landed some of them, but you think you're missing the quick edge changing and jumping instead. Can you tell me what's my problem? And you described your problem perfectly in here. That is what's happening, and hopefully we can come up with some basic understanding of why that's happening and then how to fix it. So let's begin. Your approach is pretty good, but on your edge change you aren't edging as aggressively as you could be. It's very mellow. You're edging on your heels really mellow, and then you're edging onto your toes really mellow. Like, you're not leaning super hard here, and then you flatten off before you start to push with your legs, and I think that's the biggest issue here. To be honest, it's pretty good. You're really close to getting this thing consistent. So let's take a look at that again. And the big issue that I mentioned is you're switching edges and then you're pushing with your legs and standing tall. It needs to be the opposite. You need to be in that hard edge and then push with your legs as you're switching edges. So like this position, if you were to stand up taller right here, stand tall and then kind of scoop your feet through that that miniature toe side back roll that we're doing here. If you were to do that in this lean, you would do it successfully, but instead you flatten off and then do it. So the position you're pushing in, you're actually pushing when you're already back on your heels. And it just needs to be the opposite. You just need to be tilted right here when you're standing tall. Does that make sense? So that's the big difference, and that's why you get kind of stuck and it feels like you're just jumping. So I want to take you back, way back, to an example of the Bel Air from Sean Murray, the inventor of it. So this is Sean Murray's Bel Air, and again, the boards back in the day were so narrow that it made this really easy. But I want you to see what he's doing. He's actually edging really hard on his heels and then edges really hard onto his toes, but when he switches to his toes, he drops his weight onto his edge really hard, and then he does a toe side back roll off of the water that's in front of his toes. So like it's really punchy. He almost gets off the water there. I don't know if you saw that. I'm gonna try and go back. So he'll edge really hard on his heels, and then when he comes off of edge, you'll see that he almost comes off the water. So right about here. So you can see, if this timeline wasn't in the way, you can see that his board, I mean, the water is touching right about where his back foot is. The rest of his board is off the water. So he becomes really lightweight right here. And then when he edges on his toes, he gets really heavy. And when he does that, when he's carving really heavy back on his toes, there's a wall of water here. If I was to put like a GoPro camera on the nose of the board and look down his toe side edge, there'd be a wall of water that's sort of shooting out from the edge that he is carving on the water, and the water behind his board, sorry, it's really complex to explain, the water behind his board is getting pushed out with the spray, and the water in front of it is left with this nice wall of water. So when he edges on his toes, it's almost like a miniature wake right here. So he's doing like a toe side back roll, and instead of using line tension, he's using body weight because he switched his edges. He's got all this momentum traveling away from the wakes, and then he comes back into the wakes aggressively and quick, so that his momentum makes him heavier than normal, which allows him to really get his edge buried in the water. So that's kind of how this trick functions. And then when he edges on his toes, and you'll see right here, he's pushing the board down really deep. I mean, it's almost gone past the nose there. And this is when he starts to do that kind of pushing, tall, jumping motion. And you'll notice he's still really hard on a lean on his toes. and then when he stands tall, at this point is when he finally breaks even. But he's already, I mean, there's just a tiny tail of the water or tail of the board left in the water there, and he's still pretty much upright. Whereas you were already, back here on yours. And then that gives him plenty of room to rotate and then land back on the board pretty comfortably. So now that we've seen that, let's go over to a Bel Air on the cable that's essentially the same as yours, only this one edges properly on the timing. So watch when this rider gets tall. So see how he gets kind of punchy onto his toes right here? And you can see better here, there's like a little wall of water. So he's going to get heavy on his toes and then stand tall and do a loaded toe side back roll off of this tiny bit of water. So you'll see he got really heavy and buried the board there, but he's still on his toes. So this is when he gets really tall, but see how he's still leaning on his toes hard? And then he gets fully extended, and now he's at about the position that you were at when you were like starting to stand tall, but he's already almost completely out of the water. And then this gives him plenty of height and time to get back around to his feet. So that's about it. We already had diagnosed a lot of it in your description here, but I want to go back to yours one more time and let's just take a look. It's just the timing of when you stand tall is all. So right here, if you were to be punchier right there and stand tall instead of absorbing, like see how you're crunching down right here? If you were to get really tall right now and then edge up that tiny little wake that you've created with that carve, then you'd be fine. You didn't push until right here. Your push should have been earlier. So long explanation for a very simple fix of just push when you're on your toes instead of when you're on your heels, and you'll get a lot more edge out of that. But again, it's really close. I mean, you mentioned you'd been landing a couple of these, and a little bit of timing shift and practicing that. You can practice just the edge without actually doing the Bel Air. You can edge out and then come in and kind of in a punchy way sort of stand tall without really sweeping the board forward under you. You can practice that and do kind of like an ollie, like a tripping ollie, where it feels like you're almost going to fall on your back when you land, just to get that punchy feeling dialed. And then repeat it, and you should have a nice, correct Bel Air. Thanks again for uploading the video. Hopefully that helps. If you have any questions, you can hit us up down here in the comment section below, or you can work on this trick and upload another video of another attempt, and we can work on it further from there. Thanks again.